Parents, good evening. This is Superintendent Diego Ochoa. Thank you for joining us this evening. We do have a team here of people with the Hollister School District. I want to recognize them and thank them. It's, again, Brandon Johnson here with our technology department, Mike Cruz, who's one of our coordinators of special education, and Daniel Romero, our other coordinator of special education. He's a little bit off camera this time. At our last meeting, we had him in the shot and we had him sitting near me, but it was a little bit difficult to hear my voice. So we have him sitting off just to the side. He's taking phone calls now. Brandon, do you know how many folks we have in the queue now? He's on the phone now with a person who called in with the question, and we are able to check to see how many are in the queue. Do you have an idea?
Oh, like 6 right now.
Great. So we have 6 callers in the queue. It's a great time to call if you have a question. Mrs. Cruz, who I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago, she is she's taking email questions and she's taking those notes down to review them with me. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the public for a few minutes through some updates regarding the plan. And then somebody will go over and talk to Mr. Romero. He gets excited, Mr. Romero. He's over to the side and his voice goes just a little bit higher sometimes than we want it to go. So one of the things that happened after our last online YouTube parent town hall was we received a ton of information, lots and lots of questions. We received multiple responses from all over the district, different schools with different questions depending on the children's age and the particular concern. When we held the last online town hall, we had over 500 live viewers and over 5,000 views of the video, so we were very thankful that our parents got so involved and wanted to know more about what was happening moving forward in the district. And then we received close to 400 emails, and after we received those emails, we categorized them into a large document that we filled in and answered each question at the time with the information we had. And we published that document on sanbenitolive.com. We also emailed that document to every household in the district. So we have gone and taken multiple steps to bring voices in, to get feedback, and then to communicate that feedback. I also want to talk a little bit about some additional parent meetings that we have conducted. So last Friday and the Friday before, we held meetings with our migrant PAC advisory parents. And these folks met with us for an hour and shared with us their viewpoints on the district's proposal to have a hybrid return to school. And then at the same time, we met on a different night with a group of school site council parent representatives from all over the district. So that was a large meeting. That one was close to about 30 families on the call, all participating, giving their point of view on the idea of a hybrid return and what that would mean for their childcare situation and what would it mean for their child's academic progress in the upcoming year. So once we received all that feedback, we took that back to our school reopening task force, and we held 2 more school reopening task force meetings after the first online town hall. And the richness and the depth of the questions that we got from the parents, those that emailed in, those that called in, and also those that were just typing into the chat during our last town hall, they made us really shine a spotlight on the idea of having a strong distance learning plan. Having a distance learning plan that has ease of use for parents, having a plan that ensures internet access as well as computer device access, and having a strong plan that involves regular communication with families, regular emails, regular follow-ups, regular check-ins, so that when we move into next school year, our distance learning plan is as strong as our in-school academic plan. So I wanted to take you through that. At this point in time, I'm gonna project the school district reopening plan that will be presented to our school board tomorrow night. And this is a plan that is just a development from the original plan we put forth. I want to focus on page 2 here. There's a paragraph that indicates if the public health scenario improves, we will also be prepared to allow students to return to school for 5 days per week with safety precautions. That was one of the big kind of questions that came up over and over again was, how will my child go back to school 5 days a week? What will have to happen? And currently what we're looking at is the idea of the public health situation improving over time. If and when that were to happen, the district would be ready, absolutely ready to come back to school for those 5 days a week. So I wanted to point that out here on page 2. Taking you through and taking you down to page 4, which is the response to public health. This is a section we added that just involved a couple of additional visuals that I want to take you through. And I want this to show that our plan allows for flexibility. So as we go into next school year, we think August 17th, that's our day of return. This plan calls for a hybrid return, Monday, Tuesday, no school Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But the big question on this visual here is if the public health situation were to require a shelter in place, our district plan involves a return to distance learning. So that's if we go back, if we were for whatever reason to return to a shelter in place, our district would be prepared to return to distance learning. The flip side of that coin is if the public health situation were to improve substantially prior to August 17th or after, then for us, that plan involves 5 days of in-school attendance. I think the hard part for parents and the hard part to see down the road is what is it going to take for the public health situation to improve substantially. So that's where we would start talking more on the medical side of having the cases come all the way down, of having the regional and then the statewide health scenario improving. It would involve the CDE, the California Department of Education, giving updated guidance and ensuring that if we were to allow 5 days of in-school attendance, we could still do so safely and in a way that protects the health of staff and students. From there, I'm going to take you through a review of the options of hybrid, a review of the Hollister Rise Academy, which is a fully online at-home academy. In addition to that, the ideas that we presented initially, the temperature screening, the visible markings, the staff wearing face coverings, the 1 student per row, all that continues in our proposed plan moving forward. Once we enter campus, there were some questions on how we would implement hand washing. So part of it will involve us purchasing standalone hand washing stations that are operated by foot, so you have fewer students touching nozzles and touching knobs, as well as freestanding hand soap dispensers, so a child would put their hand under the dispenser and the soap would be dispensed onto the palm of their hand to avoid having children touching and essentially using the same surfaces or touching the same surfaces. And then a pull down hand drying station that's right next to the hand washing station and the soap dispenser. In addition, the middle school student face covering continues to be included in our plan. I think everybody got the message about the state expanding their face covering recommendation down to 2 years old. But I do want to clarify that we've received an explanation from the Department of Education saying that schools and childcare facilities are exempt from that requirement. So our new plan says we will encourage it for children TK through 5th grade, but not require it, if that makes sense. And then taking you through technology, again, a one-to-one Chromebook program for all of our students. We have some work ahead of us in the next 2 months to make sure that all of our students have a device. We want to continue to encourage families to allow children to bring their own device if it's a device they're comfortable with, if it's a device they use well, and if it's a device that they would prefer to have their own computer to avoid using our computer, which they're responsible for the computer. And then again, I want to highlight our plan to have easy access to online support for students and parents who are involved in distance learning. That's definitely a big part of our plan. The next 2 posters I won't go over in too much detail, but they're distance learning tips again. Those haven't changed from our last meeting. Distance learning tips for parents, and then for our students, specifically our middle school students, distance learning tips for them as well. This next poster, we plan to have a version of it up in classrooms all over the district, and it's just a way to keep our school safe, to ensure that we're using good hygiene practices and to ensure that we're making good decisions about the kind of meetings we have and the kind of travel that we participate in. And then in addition, allowing that reminder about staying home if you're not feeling well. That's going to be a very important part of our plan for next year. This next visual, this comes out right up front and tells you, if you're feeling sick, stay home, stay in bed. Help us reduce the spread of coronavirus. So that one's pretty straightforward. And again, on the bottom of this visual, there is that explanation to reach out to COVID concerns at HESD.org, which will be on the bottom of all of our posters as we move forward. This poster again is an explanation about talking to your kids about coronavirus. So we want to encourage parents to review that and to start to put these things in place before our school year starts. So with that, I'm going to open it up to my coworkers here. Somebody brought me a cup of coffee, so I'm going to lean over as far as I can to avoid spilling it. And I've got a list of questions here. And our first is, and Mr. Romero has got some other questions. So we've got probably a good 20 to start off with. And I'll take the first one here, which is, what do the 3 days of online learning consist of? Are students logging into live Zoom classrooms for those 3 days, or will they just be doing work posted by the teachers? That's an excellent question, and what I want to make parents understand is I want to compare the distance learning we're doing now versus the distance learning we're going to do in August. So when your child reports to school for those 2 days a week, Monday and Tuesday, for example, they're going to have 14 hours of contact with their teacher. The work that they're doing in that classroom with their teacher will be absolutely connected to the work that they do from home Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And most importantly, your child will know that they have to have it done by the time they return for the next Monday. And that's a big part of what we're missing right now, is we're missing that feeling of being close to that classroom teacher, feeling that accountability of getting the work started, the work progressing. And I would say that for the most part, it's going to be a big part of the practice of the work that we're expecting kids to do. It's going to be following through on completion of tasks that were already started. And then when the children return, a big part of their distance learning time will also be watching videos and preparing for the learning that's going to happen when they're in class with their teacher. So thank you for that question. Here's our next. Will all students be required to wear face coverings? with the new laws. And so I talked about that briefly, but currently there is an exemption for school districts and child care centers. So as of now, all students will not be required to wear face coverings. Our plan is to have all of our middle school students, so 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students should wear and will be required to wear their face covering next year. But I also do want to add that little piece to say if a child has a respiratory issue, if a child has severe asthma, if they have a doctor's note allowing them not to wear a face covering, we will work with those families as well. So thank you for that question. Our next question is about the RISE Academy. How many hours would be required and when is the last day to sign up? So I'll answer the second question first. The last day to sign up is as soon as you can. We need to know as soon as possible so that we can prepare to have teachers assigned to that program. We would hope that parents would have their applications in by the middle of July, so July 15th is the day we're looking at. But any application that comes in after July 15th, we'll continue to accept them, but we just want, and we're asking parents to follow through between now, June 22nd, or June 21st and July 15th. So thank you for that question. And how many hours are required? We want students on their devices 3 hours a day in the RISE Academy. They'll also have additional work to do off their devices, so we'll expect them to do physical education regularly. We'll assign them social emotional learning activities separately from their online work. So the idea there is we don't want a child to sit on a computer for 8 hours a day. That would have some very negative impacts on their development, on their level of stress, on their level of fatigue of just being on the computer, and we want them to really focus for those 3 hours while they're online. So thank you. All right, next question. RISE Academy, if I enroll my student in the RISE Academy to start the year, can I later enroll her in the hybrid program if it is not working out? The answer, we talked about this at our last meeting, is yes, but let me explain to you why I won't recommend parents doing that. So one of the hardest things to do when you decide to place your child in a program like the RISE Academy is to have that decision happen without the advantage of having done it before. So what I want to assure parents who choose to enroll their children in the RISE Academy is, number one, the teacher that's going to be assigned to your child is a strong teacher. These are our teachers. They're Hollister School District teachers. They've been trained. Number two, these teachers care a great deal about your children. So they're going to help your child succeed in the RISE program. Number three is your child will learn and figure out how to succeed in the RISE program through trial and error, through working on things a certain way, realizing it didn't give them the result they wanted, moving it, shifting it this way, trying it a different way. And the best part about it is that they'll have a supervising teacher who will be holding their hand the entire way through the process. So we feel really, really good about how the RISE program is going to develop. And again, if a parent wanted to withdraw their child from the RISE Academy, we would allow that, but we wouldn't recommend it because we believe that the program will succeed with enough support and effort and coordination with the school. So thank you for that question. Here's another. What is the plan for incoming kinders to accommodate the walk-in and drop-off? Can times be staggered to help with accommodate the drop-off? Thank you for that question. That's an excellent question. We have a group of principals who are talking about that very idea. We're throwing a lot of ideas around there. What we are not going to do is we are not going to make kindergartners walk into their classroom for the first time ever by themselves. We are planning to create some time for parents to be able to go into the classroom with their child so that they can see their child's classroom. But it's just going to look different than previous years, because in previous years, we would tell parents, show up at 9 a.m. on this day, all 25 parents, They would come in all together, crowd in, and we just can't do that this year. So we're gonna have to do it differently, and I wanna assure parents that every single kindergartner, every single TK student will be able to have their parent walk in with them to the classroom before school starts for the first day of school. But it just won't be the way it was in previous years, so thank you for that question. Another question from Mr. Romero here and here, so thank you for that. Are these also new?
Yeah, those are new.
Awesome, thank you. Question, will students be getting letter grades for RISE and the hybrid program? Yes. Students will be graded and students will receive grades for each of those programs, so thank you for that question. Question, if the students attend RISE, will HSD receive ADA? So there's a lot of acronyms in that question. I want to thank the parent that put that one out there. The students who are in the RISE program will absolutely continue to be Hollister School District students. So we will monitor their attendance. And the way the RISE program will work is it's based on the completion of work. So if a student signed up for Hollister RISE Academy and after 1 week didn't do any work, we would meet with the parent, we would hold a program meeting to talk about why it isn't working. We would come up with a plan for the second week, for the third week, for the fourth week. And if a child just wasn't completing work in the Hollister RISE Academy, then it's the same as missing school. So it's just counting as days missed for that child. So then we would put in a whole host of other supports for that child. And attendance basically works the same way whether they're in RISE Academy or whether they're attending in the hybrid program. Excellent question. Will we have another Spanish town hall meeting? Yes. We will have another Spanish town hall meeting. Thank you for that question. We'll be sending out that invitation to our Spanish-speaking households very soon. We're still trying to narrow down the date for that. So that will be coming out to all of our Spanish-speaking families. So thank you for that. Question, if my child goes to RISE Academy, will they lose a spot at their home school, for example, Sierra Vista? No, they will not. If they go to the RISE Academy, they do not lose their spot at their home school. Thank you for asking that. Question, will parents have a training on how to log students into the RISE Academy? Excellent question. The answer is yes. Our plan is to provide training for every parent of every student in the RISE Academy. So thank you for that question. Question, can there be a shorter schedule to accommodate the drop-off schedule? So let me think about this question. Can there be a shorter schedule? Folks, do you know, Ms. Gwen, was this your question? The shorter schedule to accommodate it? No? I'm gonna hold on to this question. If you called in or sent an email about this, will you send just a little bit more of an explanation on this question? So it's, can there be a shorter schedule to accommodate the drop-off schedule? And I wanna understand a little bit more, so I need more information from the parent. All right, question, how can I see what my child's classroom setup will look like? What a good question. The district is working right now to put together some sample classrooms. And we plan to put these classrooms together, take videos, and send them to all of our families so all families can see what classrooms will look like. And we're working on that right now, so sit tight because they're all coming out. Question, if I have a kinder, am I allowed to walk them to their classroom on their first day? We did talk about this. It won't necessarily work the way it worked in prior years, but we will allow parents to bring children onto the campus before the start of their first day. So I wanna make parents understand that we're still working on the finer details, but that absolutely is a big part of the plan. We're not gonna make our 5-year-olds go to school for the first time and walk into their classroom without their parent for the first time. So thank you for that. What happens if one of those kids runs from the classroom because it is a new and scary time for them? That happens every year. Our staff is very accustomed to that. We prepare for that. We have staff located there. Our principals and assistant principals are usually somewhere really close to those kinder classes for that reason. And what we find is that within a matter of hours, we have students really calm and feeling really good about being with their new friends and being with their teacher. We still know that for some children it takes 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. And what we do, folks, is we just work with children. We support them, we coach them, we counsel them, and for some kids it does take as long as a week or even 2 weeks. And we just don't give up. We continue to work with them and continue to support them until they feel comfortable in the class. And that's what we do. So thank you for that question. Question, with the new state mask mandate, how does that change? So currently there is an exemption for schools and for childcare centers. So if that were to change, if we were to be required to have face coverings, then we would update our plan. So thank you for that question. Question, what will recess be like besides the answer of social distancing? Please give examples. I will. So one of the things that is very common in recess is for children to be able to play in any area of the campus. So they'll be able to be on the play structure, they'll be able to play games with friends over here, they can run out to the field, they can run back to another part of the play structure, they can basically free flow, and that will change. That won't happen with recess next school year when we return in a hybrid fashion. It'll be more structured, so we'll have areas where one class of students will play, and we'll have another area where another class of students will play. Right now, as an example, we're looking at doing some minor modifications, but allowing kids to play soccer is an example of a game that we think is going to be safe for kids to play, and that we can teach kids how to play soccer. Another example is having kids play on our basketball courts, but just changing it enough so that it isn't the typical one basketball for 5 kids playing, but 5 basketballs with 5 kids playing, and them playing in a little bit more of an organized fashion, but still having a good time because they are with their friends and they're shooting hoops. It just is gonna look a little bit different. If you can think of like an example, the game that's pretty well known called Horse, where kids attempt to make the same shot that their friend makes. That's an example of the kind of modified outdoor game that kids will play. And then at the younger ages, a big part of it will be teaching kids how to play no-touch games. And there are a number of different outdoor, open space, kind of open field related no-touch games, and we definitely plan to have those in place going into next year. So thank you for that question. Question, how will lunches be provided? In 2 ways. Lunches will be provided while children are physically at school. They'll have their lunch. And when children go home on their last day, so like if they're a Thursday, Friday group B, then that group of students will take their breakfast and lunch for the next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, the days they're not at school. The students that go to school on Monday and Tuesday, they'll take their lunches for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the days they're not at school. They'll take their breakfast and lunches, I should have said. When kids are in school, they'll eat lunch in one of 2 ways. They'll eat lunch in their classroom, or they'll eat lunch outdoors in an area that can be sanitized and that can be ensured that there's no cross mixing of classes. So an example would be if my child is a 1st grader at Calaveras, I will have my child eat in the open lunch area on 4 tables that are specified for my child's class. And an adult will be there to supervise and monitor them while they have their lunch. And instead of going to pick up the food at the counter where all the children used to pick up their food, they'll receive their food in a box and take it with them over to the lunch area. So it'll have some changes, but we want to try to get kids outside as much as possible to feel the sunshine on their shoulders and to be able to sit with their friends and have lunch on the lunch tables. So thank you for that question. What steps will be taken if there's a non-compliant child in terms of following the rules. There'll be a lot of steps. The first and most important step for anything we do is to teach. We'll never lose our focus as a group of educators on the importance of teaching. So in the month of July, we'll be putting together some educational videos. Right now, the plan involves asking for students to volunteer to come out in these videos for us, to actually be able to ask families of our students. If you have a child that isn't shy about being on camera and is the kind of kid that likes the spotlight on them, we would love to hear from you so that we can get your child involved in helping us create some educational videos that we can start to promote in July and August before kids even return, because we want to teach kids how they're supposed to interact on campus. Then the second part is we would immediately work with parents. And I'm talking about if a child is purposely doing things to ignore social distancing or purposely doing things to touch surfaces they shouldn't touch, or basically breaking the rules that have to do with our health and safety, we're going to take that very seriously. So that would mean a parent meeting, it would mean some consequences, it would mean some interaction with the family if it were to continue. And obviously on our part, we want to really invest as much as possible in the educational aspect of teaching kids what to do before it ever got to that situation. All right. Our TK through 6th grade students going to be required to wear face coverings. 6th grade will, but TK through 5, currently there's an exemption from the state Department of Public Health. And at this time, we don't plan to include that in our reopening plan. But if that were to change between now and August, we would update the plan. That's a very important piece for families to understand. If the situation becomes, from a public health scenario, worse and we have more concerns, the plan will become more restrictive. If the situation improves, we'll have fewer restrictions, we'll have more access to the campus. So thank you for that question. Question, a teacher develops symptoms of COVID-19 on Monday or Tuesday during Group A of school. The teacher reports it and is asked to quarantine. What happens to the students in Group A? Do they also get quarantined? The answer is the students in Group A and Group B, those students that are assigned to that teacher, our expectation is we would work with public health to report the incident of coronavirus, positive coronavirus case. And from that point forward, we follow the CDC and the California Department of Public Health requirements, which call for a self-isolation for up to 14 days. And that's how we would ensure that one case didn't become 100 cases in a short span of time. So thank you for that question. Can you clarify, a student comes in Group A and on a Monday and sometime that day shows COVID-19 symptoms, either reported at school or later that night. The parent calls the school on Tuesday that the child is staying home. What happens to all the other students and the teacher exposed on Monday? Are they sent home? This one's a little bit less clear, but I'll try to weave through it. In this scenario, the child has not been proven to have coronavirus. The child is just not feeling well. So we would strongly encourage this child and the parent to take the child for a coronavirus test. I want to make sure there's a difference between the two. One is a child who's not feeling well and stays home. Because remember, we're going to have a flu season in September, October, November. That is going to happen. And children will be home with the flu. But that doesn't necessarily mean they have coronavirus. Now, if a child isn't feeling well and has other coronavirus symptoms, we're going to encourage that family to get to a testing immediately, like that day, so that we can inform the class and the teacher of the potential coronavirus incident that took place in their class. So thank you for those questions. Thank you and actually our Parent Town Hall Q&A has some really, really good answers to those kind of questions in the chart that we sent out again, that we sent to every family in the district. So thank you for that question. All right, the district does not always have enough substitutes to cover classrooms when a teacher is absent. How is the district going to promise adequate coverage if a teacher is quarantined for 14 days? Will the entire class be quarantined for 14 days? So that's two different questions. If a teacher is coronavirus positive, all of the students will be asked to remain home for 14 days, up to 14 days. So that's the one question. Again, because they were in close proximity with each other, they're likely to have been at risk, to have been exposed to coronavirus. The second part of that question is, how will the district have enough substitute teachers in the event that we don't have coverage for those students? At no point in time will we ever require students to be in a classroom with more than the 16 kids. That means our assistant principal would step in, our principal would step in. We have administrators who work here at the district office. I will send administrators to Lad Lane or Sarah Vista or Gavilan Hills or any school in the district to go and cover if it's absolutely needed. What we find is we're close to about 95% coverage with substitutes, so we're feeling good about that. And our plan is to continue to support those substitutes and keep them in our sphere of people who work for us. So thank you for that question. Will there be improvements in classroom ventilation for better filtration of the air when students must be in the room with the door closed? I think you're maybe asking two different questions. Our school district has undergone some pretty extensive HVAC renovations in the last few years, so our schools have air circulation and filtration going on. But I think what we're hearing in the news is we want to open windows as much as possible. We want to open doors as much as possible just to get that fresh air circulating. So we're definitely going to recommend that and going to plan for that. So I think on a day where it would not be possible to have doors open, I think those would be days where maybe it just reaches a certain temperature that gets too hot, or it's just a certain time of day where it's too cold. And in those situations, we do have, again, some pretty extensive upgrades that we've had in the district pertaining to our HVAC system. So thank you for that question. All right, let me do a little organizing here. I have an awesome team of people helping me here. Our Director of Special Ed, Ms. McCarron, came in. We have Mr. Romero. We've got Ms. Calero, our Director of Ed Services. We've got Mai Cruz. Some of them have better penmanship than others. I just want you families out there to know that some of these folks, they skipped a couple of Danielian handwriting lessons over the years. If a student in a class or the teacher tests positive, what steps will be taken? Will the families be notified? And what if the students in the same class are positive or a teacher be required to quarantine at home for 14 days? So, if a child or a teacher in any class is deemed coronavirus positive for 14 days, the current language in all of the guidance documents from the Department of Public Health and the Department of Education is that those notices go out to the whole class. So we would notify every family and the teacher, and all would be self-isolating for those 14 days. For up to 14 days, we would encourage all to go get tested to ensure that they are aware of their health, essentially. And then at the end of that time, they all come back to campus if they're feeling better, less than 100.4 temperature, without fever-reducing medication, improvement in their associated symptoms, whether it be shortness of breath or coughing, that sort of thing. So thank you for that question. Question, is the AAA program still going to be the same? I think so. I think obviously we'll be in hybrid instruction. So on the days that they're distance learning, that's different. But when the kids are in school, my understanding is that the school continues to move forward with their type of instruction, and in that sense, it will be very similar to last year. Thank you for that question. When will we find out if we are accepted in the RISE Academy? Excellent question. We do have our Director of Student Services, Kip Ward. He's monitoring the applications that come in. We're currently at 75 applications district-wide. We're expecting to receive more applications as we move forward. And once we have a time early next week, we'll begin to notify parents that apply that their applications are received and that they've been accepted into the program. So thank you for that question. All right. Question, will middle school students be switching teachers for different classes? And if yes, will the students remain in the same cohort? The plan calls for students to remain in the same room for almost all classes. There will be exceptions made. They'll be few and far between. But the current plan, the proposed plan, is for our students to remain in one room and for teachers to come into the room and move throughout the day so that our students have fewer times during the day when they're moving around. Thank you for that question. Question, what is the board voting on tomorrow exactly, and when will parents be notified about their decision? The board is voting tomorrow to approve the district's proposed plan for reopening, which is the document you have in front of you here. Brandon, if you could cue that up again. So if you go to this document, it has a series of steps and actions. It calls for adopting a series of policies. So what the board is saying here is they're gonna review this plan tomorrow night at the board meeting and decide whether or not this is the plan that they want to move forward with. And if it is, it will be adopted, and the district will then move forward establishing all of the criteria and all of the policies and all of the procedures to make this hybrid proposed plan work. So thank you for that question. How many students will be in each classroom? Less than 16 in each classroom. Thank you. How will attendance and truancy be adjusted considering students should be staying home if they have any flu-like symptoms? This will be a very unique year for attendance and truancy. When children are home with the flu, those absences will not count towards their truancy, and there won't be any punitive actions taken by the district as a result of them being home with flu-like symptoms. Thank you for that question. What are the district's strategies regarding following IEP needs? That's an excellent question. I feel like we have all of our special education staff here with us tonight, so I kind of feel like just pulling them up and having them talk to you. But I think what our biggest goal is to make sure that we follow a child's IEP, that we work with our IEP team to make sure that the goals that are written into a child's IEP are achieved, and that our focus is to make sure that we're working towards implementing that child's IEP going into next year. I encourage you to maybe narrow down a little bit more and ask me a more specific question, because I want to be able to answer those questions for you. Thank you. And I have my director whispering off to the side that you should email the director of special education, so thank you for that. Are you guys planning on merging with the high school? My oldest son goes, and do you have any information? No. And what we want to do is we want to allow the high school district to be able to move forward with their plan and to share their plan and to engage with their plan. So for us, our focus is to narrow down on all of our 10 schools and to work with our community and with our parents in that process. So thank you for that. Thank you for that question. Right. Question here. You do a little bit more organizing. Brandon, how are we doing on calls? How many in the queue?
Thank you very much. It's a lot of chat.
All right. Everyone is jumping on the chat. That's a little bit faster. When will kids be playing with each other, and is there research about the social and emotional impact? Kids will be playing with each other on the first day of school. It'll be different kind of play. It'll be play that involves prohibiting the physical touch and the sharing of similar of shared either toys or balls or that kind of thing. And then we obviously want to build up to having more and more different types of games happening so that kids can learn how to appropriately maintain their social distance while being outside and playing together. So the second part of that question is there research about the social and emotional impact? It's a bit of a short time frame. Educational research will often take the scope of a full year for it to be able to be applicable. But as an educator myself, working with educators every day, and also parents, almost all of us who work here for the Hollister School District have children that attend the Hollister School District or have already raised our own children. The impact that this has had on the social emotional well-being of children is something we can see every day. So we know that what children need is they need to return to experiences with their friends, they need to be with their teachers, they need to engage with other people their age, and we believe that this plan is a first step in that process. So thank you for that question. Are shorter days for kinders possible to help accommodate parents walking their students to class? One of the issues with having parents come on campus, if you think about this like on an everyday basis to walk their child to class, the issue is just the exposure of of parents every day to one another and to the other children in the class. So that's the biggest thing kind of holding us back from having parents come on campus every day to go into their kindergarten classroom, because our schools tend to have between 75 and 125 kindergartners. So if that were the case, you would be talking about 100 adults coming on campus every day. We almost always put the classes together. So now you're talking about 100 adults physically close to each other. Multiply that by their kids physically close together. And it just, you can start to see how it becomes a really big problem to be able to socially distance with that many kids in that small of a space, morning and afternoon. So right now what we're looking at is we're looking at a way to bring parents in before the first day of school, allow parents to access to the classroom, to walk with their child into the classroom, and then having other protocols in place for when we have kids picked up by their parent, and especially those kindergartners, the littlest guys. So thank you for that question. What is the difference between the governor's decision on face coverings and our recommendation for K-5? I don't think there is a difference. I think the governor is saying, or the Department of Public Health is saying, all individuals, all people ages 2 and above, when they're in public, need to wear a face covering. But that specifically exempts or says it doesn't apply to schools or to child care centers. So I think that's essentially our same plan. Is we're a school, so we're saying at this time we're not going to require it. But I will tell you, this plan does include encouraging face coverings for all children. It doesn't require it, but it does encourage it. So thank you for that question. Is the RISE program asynchronous? Excellent question. The RISE program is not, Mrs. Clara, would you just, I need to be able to differentiate them. Would you just, is this a new one? Here?
No.
Okay, thank you. Asynchronous. No, the RISE program is not asynchronous because we don't have a teacher teaching all students simultaneously on the RISE program. The RISE program is fully online. It's independent. It's student driven, and our teachers act as guides. They act as supervisors of the learning. So it isn't asynchronous teaching. So thank you for that question. How often is the sanitation and how intensive, and what is the guarantee? So what I want to encourage parents to do is to go online and search for the CDC, or the Centers for Disease Control, guidance on cleaning schools. And what I want parents to understand is we're taking that guidance and we're dropping it into our school. And that is the level of cleaning that we'll be doing for all of our campuses. So it starts with having the right cleaning solutions. The solutions that we have are certified and approved to be able to sanitize and work against the coronavirus. Our guarantee to parents is that every single day we will have staff sanitizing, cleaning restrooms, cleaning doorknobs, cleaning desks throughout the campus in a way that makes it clean all day long. So I want to explain what that means for your child. So if your child is a middle school student, your child will be in their classroom. When they're at their desk, they don't have other kids coming to their desk, touching their desk, going in their desk, taking their materials. So we'll clean that desk when your child leaves the classroom. But when your child walks to the restroom, there are handrails and there are posts throughout the school. And teenagers and kids love to touch handrails and love to jump up and touch rooftops and things of that nature. We will be cleaning those posts, those handrails, and those doorknobs on an ongoing basis. Our plan is to have 3 custodians at each of our school sites throughout the day who have a roster of places to go to and sanitize throughout the whole school day. So thank you for that question. Next question, proposed 2 days. Is it regular day or half day? It's regular day. And will there be consideration for siblings in the same cohort? Yes, that will be our focus, is to get all of our siblings on the same days. So thank you for that. When will we find out what group our students are in? We're looking at currently 15 days from now, and I want to explain how that process will work. If the board approves the hybrid rotational plan that's being proposed, the district will send out a survey to parents asking 3 questions. 1, do you have a preference of Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday? 2, do you have children who are siblings? And 3, do you not have a preference? Because there will be lots of families who say Thursday, Friday would work, or Monday, Tuesday would work. And we need to know who those families are as well, because there will be some families who require or feel very, very strongly about having either Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. And we want to make sure that we take care of those families. And we want to make sure that we balance where those families are attending. The second part of it is, you have to remember we need to arrange for transportation for the whole district. So that means we need to basically divide out all the children that require transportation to make sure that our buses have about the same number of kids on Monday and Tuesday as they do on Thursday and Friday, because we have to socially distance on our school buses as well. So that's an added piece that we need to be thinking about. And once we get that survey data back from our parents, which we plan to send it out June 24th, we plan to ask for it to be turned in by parents on June 30th. So parents will get an email from us, and parents will get an actual letter in the mail. So the parents that respond to email, you don't have to turn in the one in the mail. The parents that don't use email, they'll fill out theirs in paper. They'll drop them in those registration drop boxes at all of our sites, or they can bring them here to the district office. And then we'll take the next week to add it all up, to put it all in a big file, and from there we'll start to make assignments to group A or group B, and that message will be sent out again via email and via the US mail to all parents. We're hoping in about 15 days is the timeline we're looking at. So thank you for that question. Question, is there any chance of a later school start date? At this time, there isn't. At this time, we're looking at August 17th. So thank you for that question. Question, what are the options for kids in special education? So the options for our children with special needs are similar to those for the options for our children who are in general education. The Hollister Rise Academy can accommodate children with IEPs. It would require us to hold a meeting to talk about services to modify the IEP. We would need to have that conversation, but those options are available for both general ed students and special education students. Question: how is the workload for the 3 days the students are learning from home? Online work or packets, and how many hours per day? Our goal is to be able to give kids a substantial assignment of work on those days. I think when you're talking about real little guys, TK, kinder, first grade, second grade, you want most of it to be paper and pencil, because you want to build up their pencil grip skills, their visual motor integration. You want them to engage with letters, with numbers. The older kids remember, we're going to be one-to-one devices. So we want kids to be able to take their device home and to be able to do work in their Google Classroom. I would say that a very round ballpark figure for kids being at home would be a minimum of 3 hours of actual work on those off days. But again, remember, we're going to ask for physical education to take place on those days at home as well. And we want to engage the kids in other kind of work on those days. But as far as school work from class, the kind of work that gets sent home, it will be written, it will be online. We want all of our students, TK through third grade, to be doing a minimum of 20 minutes of Footsteps of Brilliance from home per day. So it'll be a combination of a lot of different things. So thank you for that question. Question: can we do 3 days at school or have video access on their days off? Right now, the plan doesn't call for 3 days at school. Right now, the plan calls for 2 days at school, and the reason is that it's based on the principle of having one group of students not engage with the other group of students, not be in the physical presence of the other group of students. So if a school has 900 kids, the way that Gavilan Hills HDLA does, that will split the campus into groups of 450. And the idea is to try to have those groups be separate from one another. So that Wednesday gives the school district time to sanitize the campus, but also allow the teachers time on those Wednesdays to do the preparation and the connecting with families who were on distance learning or will be on distance learning. So thank you for that question. Excellent question. What kind of outdoor classroom / outdoor learning ideas are you considering for next year? We're considering all of them. We got some very good feedback from our parents and staff on the use of outdoor shady spaces. We're definitely looking at it as an opportunity to do some reading work out there. We're definitely looking at it to be able to take kids outdoors to do some of our social, emotional lessons outdoors. And weather permitting, we will want to get kids out and get fresh air and get the sunshine on their shoulders as much as possible next year. So thank you for that question. Question: the 2 days of in-school instruction and online learning that is being offered will not teach my son valuable lifelong skills. I think that our approach to this is to say that all of us would prefer to have 5 days of in-school instruction. But right now we're facing a very life-changing, dramatic, unexpected pandemic that, as we all have seen, even over the last week, it changes day by day. 4 weeks ago, San Benito County looked really calm. We had it under control. We were moving forward. And today, we're getting messages about cases starting to rise. Our governor and the Department of Public Health is saying face coverings for everybody 2 and up. So it's starting to move and it's starting to change. And what we see is a hybrid, rotational, half the kids in school, half the kids at home, as a first step to be able to give those children the instruction that they need. And we expect for it to be a major improvement over what children have experienced over the last 3 months. And in addition to that, we know that we're going into next year with 1,000 Wi-Fi hotspots for our needy families who didn't have internet access. And we're going into next year with a one-to-one device for every family. Not for every, like 3 kids at home, 1 computer, no. 3 kids at home, 3 computers. With the technology support, with the 2 days of instruction, we're really banking on that making a huge difference for our kids. Thank you for that. Question, how is middle school going to look regarding transition from class to class? Our plan is to have the teachers transition from class to class and to have the students remain in the same class for almost all classes. Thank you for that question. Question, how will the school ensure the safety of students from an active shooter, God forbid, since doors will be left open for ventilation? Well, there's a couple of things in there, so thank you for that question. We'll have very strict and very restricted access to the campus, so gates will be locked, the front of the school will be inaccessible. As we talked about, we will want to have some ventilation in it. We will want to have some fresh air. But at the same time, our school has the ability to quickly lock doors. Our teacher would run to the door and get that door locked. All of our active shooter drills, all of our emergency preparation drills will remain intact. We'll continue to put those in place, and we'll modify them so that they pertain and they align with our social distancing requirements. So this is a tough question because we don't always like to think about it. It makes us a little bit worried to think about something like this happening. And I would leave it on that feeling of security, knowing that we have a school principal, knowing that we have campus supervisors, knowing that we have yard duties, teachers, custodians who are all there who would react very quickly and put the district's safety plans in place. All right, question. All right, we're doing on time, 6:05. Wow, super fast, guys. Will the district be requiring teachers and other school personnel to be tested, and if so, how often? We will do temperature screening for all employees every day before their shift, but we won't require coronavirus testing. If and only if an employee explains or tells us that they are feeling the symptoms, we'll strongly recommend that they go be tested. But as far as reporting to work, we won't require them to take the test before, and we'll rely on taking their temperature and asking the screening questions as they report to work. So thank you for that question. What is the teacher to child ratio for the RISE Academy? Our RISE Academy ratio is 1 teacher will be supervising up to 40 students in the RISE Academy. So thank you for that question. Question, when will we receive report cards? At this time, we expect to have the same report card procedures. We expect to have the same times of the year, and we don't believe that's going to change going into next year. Thank you for that question. All right, here we go. This is really good, guys. Thank you. I'll take that question. All right. Will middle school students be able to pick an elective, and how will PE go in the middle school? 2 excellent questions. Our plan is to meet over the next couple of months to really come together as a district on the middle school planning, specifically what that schedule will look like and how the elective will take place. So we will absolutely have electives and we will absolutely have PE. What we will need to decide is we'll need to decide how children will select that elective and whether that elective will take place through distance learning or whether it'll take place face-to-face. We did send out a survey to all parents. Thank you to all the 1,200 parents that responded to the survey. and to staff, and all of us are worried about the potential learning loss for children with their reading, their writing, their math, and their core subjects. So we have to talk about over the next few months how to maximize in-school time for those subjects. And at the same time, we have to talk about how to ensure that there's access for PE and for electives going into next year. So the two considerations are offer those classes when the kids are physically present, or offer those classes via distance learning. And that's the work that we're going to be doing over the next few weeks in preparation for next school year. So, all right, I got another question here. I'm going to put it in this. All right, question. I have a child at Lad Lane and a daughter at Mays. If I start the hybrid schedule for both of them and cases start to go up, will I be able to enroll them in the RISE program? So the way the RISE program will work is we want parents to think about it now, to review the PowerPoint that we sent that explains the RISE program, all the visuals on the RISE program. We want you to think through it and make your decision, because once school starts in August, it will be more difficult for us to add RISE teachers after that fact. Because when we open schools and we have all of our students attending in the hybrid schedule, we'll have students assigned to those teachers. So we won't necessarily have more teachers who are unassigned. But if you enroll now, if you register them now in the RISE Academy, then that will allow us to have the teacher prepared now. So that when your child enters the RISE Academy, they have a teacher that's trained, that's prepared, and that's focused to be able to help your child. So thank you for that question. All right, is there a way that parents have a choice of whether they are in Group A or in Group B? Work comes in the way that I don't want children home alone. So our answer to this question is yes, we will survey parents to find out who is absolutely passionate about either having Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. And that will allow us to find out which parents would be flexible for either, and that will give us the wiggle room to be able to make those other assignments. So thank you for that question. All right. Question, will there be improvements in classroom ventilation? We do have that, we did talk about that question a little while ago. All right, if the school goes back to 5 days, wouldn't it be better to go back to 4 days to sanitize better? So let's talk about that. So if we have all of the students on campus in their rooms, our plan is to continue to socially distance even in that scenario. So it will allow us to do daily cleaning. So theoretically, you wouldn't need to take that Wednesday off because all of your students are on campus. And those students that are on the RISE Academy, they'll remain on the RISE Academy. So excellent question, and thank you for that question. All right. Congratulations, thank you, because you are trying the best way to take care of our kids. And I thank you for putting this out there, because I want our families to know, and I want our community to know how much all the people that work for our district care about your children, how much the people who work for our district are committed to your children and to where they go from day to day and to how they grow. We have some absolutely wonderful people, some of whom are in this room and many of whom are at home. And I'm just very thankful to them and the work that they do to make this possible. All right. Question, how will students with mild coughs due to a cold be distinguished from students with COVID-19? Excellent question. So the biggest and most important line in the sand is your temperature above 100.4? If it is, you're going home. If you have a cough, and there are some children who have coughs and they last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, that isn't going to require a child to be home unless they have, remember that line in the sand, 100.4 temperature. If they have a 100.4 temperature and a cough, they're going home. If they only have a cough and don't have any other symptoms, then we will, especially for those with a mild cough, we'll want them back in school. So thank you for that question. All right. How often will restrooms and other common areas be cleaned during the day? Continually. So our staff will have a list of places to sanitize, and they'll go down the list and they'll rotate back and go down the list and rotate back. Each staff member will have a list of places to sanitize, and throughout the day, they're running through the list. So I think it's fair to say that it will take a couple of hours to start at their first place to sanitize and get down to the last place. And we think that kind of rotation will give us a very strong cleaning plan going into next year. Thank you for that. Where will the middle school students go during breaks, lunch, and PE during extremely inclement weather? So let me think about this here. So if the weather is extremely inclement, we typically don't send students outdoors. They actually stay in their classroom. Last year, we had them in the gymnasium at Rancho San Justo. I happened to be there a couple of those days last school year. So we would need to keep children where they were. In situations like that, especially at the elementary schools, they call that indoor recess. For those of you that have never been a teacher, too many days of indoor recess in a row, it's not good, folks. It gets tough. So we happen to live in a really beautiful place that tends to have a little bit more mild weather. So our plan will be to keep kids safe where they are, to get in the way of mixing, and to ensure social distancing on those inclement weather days. All right, more questions. So folks, we're at 6:15. I think we'll be able to take maybe an additional 10 questions beyond what I have here. So those folks that are watching on YouTube Live, get your questions in here. Thank you to everybody who's sent in a message so far. Thank you so much for doing that already. Let me just get this going here. My coffee has to be lined up to the seam on the side of the coffee cup. It's just a very unique thing about how I drink my coffee. Where will middle school students go during breaks? Oh, I just answered that question. Will HDLA have Spanish class on site or online, and will the Rise Academy have Spanish? So the Rise Academy won't have Spanish instruction, and HDLA teachers will continue in the same pattern as the rest of the district. So students will report, the teachers will teach on those Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and on Wednesdays we'll be on distance learning. So that's how the instruction will also work for HDLA. All right, question. So my daughter is in advanced classes at Rancho. Will that still be the case? Our plan is for that to continue to be the case. Do the middle school teachers rotate? Yes. And do they have the same teacher all day? No. Thank you for that. Question, does the hybrid apply for children in special day classes? Right now, the challenge that we're having with our special day classes is just to work through the teaching of the skills and the teaching of the routines of remaining socially distanced. But we are looking at a plan to be able to have 4 days of instruction for our special day class students. The issue is just going to be maintaining the social distance in the room and making sure that our children with special day class services understand and have been taught and can practice those skills so that when we return, we're safe in our classrooms, our health is protected, and the children get the support that they need. Thank you for that question. All right, does the hybrid apply? Oh, I've got to start putting the paper off to the left-hand side. In addition to the large responsibility placed on parents who are able to stay home and assist with their child's learning, is the assumption that it is the responsibility of the provider if the parent isn't staying at home? That's an excellent question. So I think this question is asking about childcare providers. So what we want to do is we wanted to be able to provide training online training and online videos for all of our childcare providers in the city of Hollister, because we want them to understand how easy and seamless it is to be able to access Eureka Math online, Benchmark Universe online, Footsteps to Brilliance online, Sanford Harmony online, collections on all the different programs that we have that are online. We want our childcare providers to understand that, because then what that will do is that will bring down their confusion, their anxiety about how to help their children, so that when our student shows up with their device, they're able to log in and participate in the program that's taking place for that day. So, thank you for that question. All right, if a class is required to self-quarantine at home, how will the kids' work be assigned? How will packets be handled? And how will Zoom take place? So that's an excellent question. And I want to just give a couple of scenarios. So if a student's class is at home on a 10 to 14 day self-isolation period, the one thing to remember is that the child themselves may be ill. So we're not going to give that child 10 days of work because they may be sick. And we're certainly not going to punish them if they don't do it or bring their grade down if they don't do it. So we'll be compassionate with every family and we'll be understanding with every family. But we already are working on developing plans that keep the instruction rolling, because our schools are divided by grade levels. So if third grade teacher A is out due to coronavirus, third grade teacher B and third grade teacher C at that school will be able to share lessons with all of those families who are feeling well, who can do the work, and who want to continue to be engaged because they're at home self-isolating, but they feel fine. So it'll be a combination of bringing everyone's collective work together. Thank you for that question. All right. What about children and teachers that are asymptomatic due to the coronavirus? So we do know that that's going to happen. Right now, some of the research that's out there has that percentage at about 25%. A person that's asymptomatic to coronavirus is not typically going to know that unless they take a test. So right now, all of the other safety tips and steps are in place. Frequent hand washing, social distancing, removing community materials, temperature screening for those who are in the class, teaching children how to appropriately cough into their elbow, how to appropriately use a tissue when they sneeze, hand washing before and after eating, before and after the restroom, when they show up, when they leave. So it's a combination of a lot of those safety protocols that would assist us even if a person were asymptomatic to coronavirus. So thank you for that question. All right. Can you break down and explain how drop-off and, most importantly, pickup will take place? That's a difficult one to do online where it's just me on camera, but I want to take you through an example. So take, for example, the scenario of Sunny Slope School. So anybody who has been to that school knows that it has a very long, winding driveway for pickup and drop-off. We know that on a regular day, that school has 600 kids getting picked up. But many kids have siblings, so it's actually closer to about 475 families. So now, with a rotational hybrid schedule, that number's cut in half. So now I have 230, 240 families, period. In addition to that, about 10% of the students are picked up on the bus. So now my number goes down even lower. So it's closer to 200 either vehicles or parents coming to pick up. So what families will see at Sunny Slope is they will see visible markings on the floor directing them where to stand so that their child can come and meet them. What we'll absolutely see is you'll see families and people passing each other. They won't necessarily always be 6 feet apart, but we'll ask them to keep 6 feet of social distance and do their best to do so. Our sidewalks are wide enough in that area to be able to permit that. But what you won't see is you won't see what happened this year at Sunny Slope, which is parents congregate right at the entrance of the two big black swinging gates in front of the new office, and parents congregate over by the bus pickup, which is on the side of campus that our principal, Mr. Rivas, he calls it the vintage side of Sunny Slope. We can't have parents grouping up and socializing in close proximity in that way. We can do that by basically maintaining our social distance, and will help by having physical markings on the floor showing families where to be. When your child arrives, we'll ask parents to walk with their child off and to be able to safely enter and exit the area without congregating or breaking the social distancing. For other families, they tend to want to pick their children up in their vehicle. The process will essentially work the same. The pickup will happen in front of the school, the child will get in the vehicle, the car will drive off, and we'll repeat the process again. So thank you for that question. Have you considered year-round schooling? Right now, the district's calendar is a more traditional calendar with June, July, and parts of August off. We haven't considered year-round scheduling. Right now, that would be another big change in a year of changes, and we would want to hold off on doing that just right this minute. So thank you for that question. All right, what does curriculum look like for the RISE kids in second grade and under? Would there be printouts and footsteps or brilliance? Yes, 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 and yes. And what the curriculum looks like is, the curriculum is Benchmark, Advanced, and Eureka Math. It is the same curriculum that they'll get if they're in class with their classmates and teacher. So for K through 5th grade, the curriculum is Benchmark, Advanced, Eureka Math, Footsteps of Brilliance, and Sanford Harmony online social emotional learning. So thank you for that question. What does the TK day look like? Our plan is for the TK program to be essentially the same as it was this school year. We'll obviously be in school 2 days instead of 5 days, so that will be a big change. But the plan is for the time spent with kids to be very similar to what it was this school year. Thank you. Question, what happens if this plan is rejected? Is there a backup plan? Yes. The school reopening task force has gone through a whole process to talk about a lot of different plans. So we're ready to reconvene, to get back together, to talk more about it, and to come up with any kind of modification that the Board of Trustees would ask for. But in addition to that, I want to highlight, this plan says if the public health situation gets way worse, we're ready to go back on distance learning. If the public health situation gets way better, we're ready to welcome all students back. So it already includes that flexibility to be able to fit into where we are with our public health scenario. All right. Question, I want to just confirm that going to school 5 days per week is off the table. What our current plan says is a 2 day per week in school, 7 hours a day, 3 days at home. That's the current proposed plan. If the situation were to improve in terms of the number of cases, in terms of the public health situation, then we would be prepared to be able to welcome everybody back. But that would require a substantial improvement in the public health situation. Thank you for that. All right. It seems like with the calendar, there are a lot of Mondays and Fridays off for the holidays. Will the school schedule be balanced so that nobody is shortened by their educational minutes? We're definitely looking at educational minutes for that. The way the schedule works now, the non-school days affect everybody. So if it were a non-school day on a Monday, then that means they wouldn't be distance learning on that Monday either. So it will balance out because of the kind of work that's assigned on those days. So thank you for that. Absolutely. And interestingly, this will be one of the few years where there's actually a Wednesday off for a Veterans Day in November. So that is also sort of an odd fit in terms of how the schedule works. Here we go. If the high school decides to go to 2 days a week, will our district be prepared to work with them to be sure that they have the same 2 days? And the biggest thing I would want families to understand is that we are working with all of our local districts, but we need to give each other that room and that space to be able to develop a plan that works for the students we're serving. So I would place a very high priority on us working with the high school district, but at the same time, won't make any promises for a different district because that's a whole other structure of how they put together their plan and what they end up deciding on doing. So thank you for that. All right. How often will the air conditioning filter be replaced? We will replace the air conditioning filter on a regular basis. I know that's not a very precise answer, but that's something that I'll actually work through our facilities department and get a little bit more of a narrow explanation for that. And when we do that, we'll make sure that it happens for all the filters at the school that need it. And I'll be sending that out in a future frequently asked question. So it looks like I have 3 more questions and that's it. 3 more questions. And Gabriel, there you are. How are you? You good?
Yeah.
We have a student here with us tonight. You can't see him because he's off camera, but he's doing an awesome job. Little champ over there. Off to the side. All right, here we go. Here we go. Will the Hollister School District be working with YMCA and other childcare providers for the days that students are not attending class? Yes. We are actively reaching out. Myself and the representatives from YMCA right now are working to get some time together so we can develop a plan exactly for that reason. Thank you for that question. Will masks be required for special education students? Our plan is to try to teach as many students as possible to wear the face covering as much as possible. When you have children with certain special needs that interfere with their memory, that interfere with their application of something they've learned, then it's more difficult to do that, but we continue to plan to teach it and reteach it, support the children as much as possible. And then some children just won't be able to wear a face covering for medical reasons, and we will allow that as well. All right. Last question. What about children with special needs, mainly those with sensory input that find it hard for them to keep their hands and other objects out of their mouth? How are we going to keep them safe at school? That's an excellent question. So part of one of the huge changes inside those classrooms that have children with special needs who do have the sensory need to put things in their mouth, to touch things, to grab things, is we want to highlight and focus on the physical changes in the environment. So we're not going to have equipment that's shared by kids. So if a child were to take something and put in their mouth, that object won't be used by a different student 10 minutes later. It will be their materials. And that's very different from what we do now. What we have done for many years is we have centers. So over in this center, we have these supplies and we have these materials, and everybody uses it. When one student leaves, a different student comes and uses those materials, and we're not going to do that in the future. In the future, every child will have their own basket or tub or bag of material. So if they were to put their own saliva on an object or on an item, that won't necessarily be shared with other children in that classroom. And then we go back to the basics. Very frequent hand washing, very frequent use of the hand sanitizer that has the correct qualities to eliminate the coronavirus. Well, it's been so fun, an hour and 32 minutes. I want to close by explaining to those watching and to thank all of those watching for spending the time with us. One of the most important things for families to understand is that as we move forward, the proposed plan that we're giving to this Board of Trustees will allow us to be able to become more restrictive or less restrictive. As this pandemic evolves, we're going to be paying very close attention to any updates that come from the Department of Public Health or the Department of Education or the Centers for Disease Control. And as we do that, we will come back to this proposed plan and we will update it. But I want to ensure all of our families that the academic program and the social emotional program your children receive in August is going to be a great improvement over what they had this March, April, May, and June, when we were doing our best. We were putting in 12, 13, 14-hour days, doing our absolute best to help every child. But we recognize the importance of upping our game and making our program stronger. And I want parents to rest assured that that is absolutely going to happen when we return in August. So with that, I thank you very much and have a great night.